It's a new day. I literally had to take an evening off from this book. That last line is not okay. Blue, this is for you as well. This is chapter 21 of Talking to Dragons, in which the battle ends and Antril makes trouble again. For a moment, the king of the enchanted forest looked at me over the hilt of the sword. Then he reached out and took it. He held it up for a moment, then turned and brought it down hard on the edge of the brazier. The brazier split and fell apart, scattering embers. As soon as it hit the floor, it started to melt and vanish. In a few seconds, there was nothing left of it, except the key. The king bent and picked it up, and then turned back to me and smiled. Thank you. You're welcome, I said automatically. Then I noticed Shiara sitting on the floor, where she had dived when the wizard started throwing spells around. She was looking from me to the king and back, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Right? Because could you imagine witnessing this? You'd be like, what the hell is going on? Oh, I'm sorry, I said. Shiara, this is the king of the enchanted forest. Father, this is my friend Shiara. She's a fire witch. Father bowed. Shiara looked at him and cleared her throat, and then cleared it again and said, hey, are you really Daystar's father? The king smiled slightly and nodded, of course. Only the kings of the enchanted forest can use the sword. He raised it so that the light flashing from the blade filled the room. Then in one fluid motion he sheathed it in the empty scabbard at his side. He looked at me and smiled again. Shiara blinked, then turned her head and glared at me. Why didn't you tell me the king of the enchanted forest was your father? She demanded. Sorry, but I didn't know it myself until just now, I said. Ha, said Shiara. Why? Before she could finish her sentence, Night Witch pounced on her. Night Witch, Shiara sounded relieved. Where did you come from? I believe she came with them. Father said, nodding toward the doorway. Shiara and I turned. A dozen wizards were sprawled on the floor in a tangled pile. Some of them were wrapped in vines, some of them seemed to be frozen, and some of them had elves and cats sitting on them. As soon as we turned to look at them, the elves all got up and bowed, then sat down again quickly before the wizards could get up and do anything. The cats just sat and blinked at us. I don't think you need to be quite so careful, the king said to the elves. If you'll let them up one at a time, I'll decide what to do with them. The elves nodded, and one of them stood up and bowed politely to the king. Father walked over to the wizard the elf had been sitting on and started asking him questions. The wizard didn't answer. Finally, Father shrugged and waved a hand. The wizard disappeared, and Father went on to the next one. What is he doing with them? As soon as they got off the wizards, the elves started gathering up the staffs and into a big bundle. Most of the cats just sat down and washed their paws. None of the wizards would say anything to Father, and he didn't waste much time on any of them. In a few minutes, there were only 3 wizards left. I was watching them when Shiara poked me. Daystar, where's Morwen? She asked when I turned around. Those are her cats. She has to be around somewhere. I don't know, I said. I remember seeing her right before Father showed up, and Telemaine was with her. I looked toward the door, where the last few wizards were, and blinked. Shiara, where's Aunt Terrell? Didn't he disappear already? Oh, no. Oh, no. No, he didn't. I was watching, I said. Shiara and I looked at each other for an instant, then headed for the doorway. No one tried to stop us. One of the elves gave us an odd look, but another elf grabbed his arm and whispered something to him, and he only bowed deeply as we passed. It made me feel almost as uncomfortable as I felt when the dwarves bowed to me. Outside in the hallway, we found Morwen kneeling on the floor beside Telemaine and wrapping long strips of black cloth around his right shoulder. Pieces of odd-looking plants littered the floor, and a little way down the hall was a puddle of something dark and slimy. The puddle had a wizard's staff lying across it, and a wizard's robe was sort of crumpled up under the staff. Morwen, Shiara said. What happened? Can I help? What happened was a battle, Morwen said. I should think that would be obvious enough. But how did Shiara stop because Telemaine was stirring? A moment later, he opened his eyes and looked up at all of us. Who's that? He asked rather hazily. That, said Morwen, was a sword. They are long, pointed, and very sharp. You're lucky you didn't take your head off. Telemaine started to shake his head and then winced. A plain sword? No wonder I couldn't block it. I thought it was a spell. Morwen snorted. You may be one of the greatest magical theoreticians in the world, but you don't have a particle of common sense, she said acidly. Why in heaven's name didn't you duck? I did duck, Telemaine said, looking startled and indignant. He was aiming for my chest, not my shoulder. And if you think I'm going to put up with you and you, Morwen said firmly, are going to put up with me until that shoulder is healed. Which, may I remind you, means that I will have to put up with you for the same period of time. Fortunately, it shouldn't take very long, a few days at most. A few days, Telemaine said. Are you mad? It'll take at least a week. Not if I change the herbs twice a day, Morwen said in an irritated tone. I should know. It's my field. Well, it's my shoulder. I'm so glad you noticed, Morwen said. Stop fussing, you'll make things worse, and I will have to put up with you for a week. Bickering like a married couple, I love it. If I had to continue lying on this floor, which is cold, hard, and extremely uncomfortable, you'll have to put up with me a lot longer than that. Morwen got a peculiar look on her face. I'll consider the idea carefully. Meanwhile, she looked past Shiara and me. Mendenbar, can you provide a room for this stubborn magician? Easily, said the king in the enchanted forest, from the door behind us. Which room do you want? The brown one, Morwen said before Telemaine could answer. He'll need a firm bed to support the shoulder. Father laughed. Of course. He started to lift his hand, and I cleared my throat. I would like to ask them something before they go, I said, when Father turned toward me. He nodded, and I looked at Morwen. Did you notice what happened to the wizard who was halfway around the brazier when you came in? I didn't see him afterward. You mean at Tyrrell? Yes, I thought I saw him, Morwen said. I'm afraid I don't recall. He wasn't the one I melted, if that's what you're asking. Could he have gotten away? Shiara asked. Morwen glanced at the king. If you will allow me, I can find out fairly quickly. Father nodded, and Morwen made a chuckling sort of sound. Two of the cats poked their heads around the corner of the door frame. Daystar wants to know what's become of one of the wizards, Morwen said to the cats, the one named Antorel. The cats looked at each other, and one of them twitched its tail. The other one looked back at Morwen and said, "Meow," and they both pulled their heads back out of sight. He got away, Morwen said, turning back to the king. Scorn says he ducked down the hall while Telemaine and I were busy with the rest of them. Father frowned. I'd better find him before he causes any more trouble. Oh boy, he's going to. He looked back at Morwen. The brown room, I think he said. Morwen nodded, and Father waved his hand. Morwen and Telemaine disappeared. Father raised his hand to make another gesture, then paused and looked at Shiara and me. I suppose you want to come too? Yes, we do. That is, if it isn't going to cause problems, I said. Hadn't quite finished my sentence when the castle dissolved into mist around us. The mist cleared immediately, and we were standing on springy green moss with the trees in the enchanted forest all around us. First I thought Father had taken us to a place a long way from the castle, but then I saw dragons and elves among the trees. I looked back over my shoulder, and there was the castle right behind us. I missed when he was able to do that. Shiara looked around. Hey, where did all the trees come from? They come from the wizard's magic, Father said. When Daystar released the magic they had stored in their staffs, it went back into the forest, and things got back to normal in a hurry. When Daystar did what? It was part of the sword and the fire and the brazier, I said hastily. I think you were busy ducking. Oh, said Shiara. By that time, the dragons and elves had seen us, and everyone started cheering and bowing. In the middle of the cheering, one of the elves came over and bowed deeply. It is good to see your majesty again, he said. It is good to be here again, Willin. Oh, the king replied. How goes the battle? I believe the dragons are the proper persons to provide that information, the elf said. The elf said, sounding more and more pompous with every word. If your majesty will wait here, I will arrange... Mandenbar, shouted one of the dragons. So it worked. She made her way through the crowd toward us. The elf frowned ferociously. Your majesty, he said in a low tone, if you would prefer a more formal audience... I haven't time for that, Willin, said the king. Besides, I need you to look in the castle. Or I need you inside the castle, not out here. Someone has to look the place over and arrange dinner for all these people and see about getting some of the housekeeping staff back. Yes, of course. At once, your majesty. Willin bustled away, looking much happier now that he had a suitable job. How's the battle? The king asked again as the dragon reached us. Quite finished, the dragon said. There are a few still out herding prisoners together, but that's about all. Excellent, the king said. But he was watching the trees out of the corners of his eyes, and there was a tiny crease between his eyebrows. If King Gazul is about, I would like to speak with her. The dragon smiled, and her eyes glittered as if she were enjoying a private joke. Gazul will be here in a moment. Father nodded, managing to look impatient and polite at the same time. Suddenly the cheering got much louder, and then the dragons drew apart, and Gazul came through the trees toward us. She was smiling, and she looked very large and green and shining. She was so magnificent that none of us saw the figure with her until they were both quite close to us. I was the first to notice that Gazul had someone with her. When I saw who it was, I blinked and swallowed hard. Mother? Cimmerian, shouted Father. He took 3 strides forward and took her in his arms. I wasn't ready for this. Kazul smiled and sat back, looking smug. I'm not okay with it. Mother was laughing and crying at the same time. I'd never seen her do that before, not ever. I was still staring when Shiara poked me. Don't stare, she whispered when I turned. It's not polite. She just corrected him. I looked at Shiara for a minute, and my face got hot. I couldn't really say anything, though, because she was right. I felt very peculiar, but fortunately Mother and the king stopped hugging each other and then just started paying attention to the rest of us. Father went to talk to Kazul, and Mother came over to us. She gave me a quick hug and said, Well done, Daystar. Thank you, Mother, I said. Shiara shifted uncomfortably, and I remembered that I still hadn't introduced her. Oh, and this is my friend Shiara. She's a fire witch. I can tell that by looking at her. Mother smiled at Shiara. You'll stay with us for a few days, won't you? Shiara nodded. Good, Mother said. Now, if you'll excuse me, there are a few things I have to attend to. Mother, I said, and she turned. That wizard, Antorel, he was in the castle, but he got away. I thought you should know. He did not get away, said a familiar voice behind him. I caught him myself. Do you want him for anything, or can I eat him? We all turned. The little dragon was sitting on the other side of the bridge, holding onto one of Antorel's arms. Antorel's robe was dirty, and he didn't have his staff anymore. He looked tattered and very unhappy, and the dragon looked extremely pleased with itself. "Well," it said, "can I eat him?" I looked at Mother, and she shook her head. "I don't think you should eat him," I said to the dragon. "The king talked to all the other wizards, and he'll probably want to talk to this one too." "Well, I want him back when the king gets finished with him," the little dragon said. "I caught him, and I'm going to eat him." "He'll probably give you a stomach ache," Shiara said. I stopped listening to the conversation because Antorel had straightened and was glaring past me at Mother. He looked more powerful somehow, but no one else seemed to have noticed anything unusual. I glanced uneasily over my shoulder and saw Father still talking to Kazul. I looked back, wondering whether I really had anything to worry about. Without a staff, all Antorel had were his extra spells, and he probably used them up in the battle. At least, I hoped he had. Shiar and the dragon were still arguing. Suddenly, Antorel twisted and made a throwing motion with his left hand. The dragon shrieked in pain and let go of him, and he ran toward the bridge, waving his hands and shouting. I felt a sudden intense surge of magic around him, and an instant later a demon appeared. Are you serious? It materialized right in front of us, all purple scales and orange claws and silver-green teeth. Antorel shouted again in a language I didn't understand and pointed at Mother. The demon nodded, and one arm darted out. I grabbed something. I grabbed something I couldn't see out of the air in front of me and pulled. The demon vanished, and Antorel cried out in surprise. I yanked at something again and sent Antorel along with the demon. After what he'd been trying to do, I didn't care whether the king wanted to talk to him or not. Then I saw the little dragon was turning pink around the edges again. I let go of whatever it was, grabbed a different one, and twisted. The dragon gave me a surprise-sounding squeak and turned green again, all at once. I dropped the piece of nothing I'd been holding and turned. It's magic. He's holding magic. Mother was shaking her head. That was a bit extreme, Daystar, she said, but her expression was proud. Daystar, what on earth did you... how did you... Jar gave up and just stared at me. I don't know, I said. I was at least as surprised as she was. I'm not even sure what I did. What happened? The little dragon asked. It looked around suspiciously. Is that wizard dead? No, but he probably wishes he were, Mother said. Demons do not like surprise visitors. Oh, is that what Daystar did with him? Said Father's voice from behind me. I wondered. Excuse me. I jumped and turned around to see the king and Kazul standing there. The king was looking at Mother. Kazul was looking at the little dragon. Where have you been? Kazul asked in a resigned voice. I've been catching wizards, the little dragon said proudly. Well, one of them anyway. He threw Dragonsbane at me again and called me a demon. And called a demon, and Daystar got rid of them both. I didn't even get to eat him, the dragon finished sadly. I see, Kazul said, shaking her head. I think you'd better spend the rest of the day with me. It may, just possibly, keep you out of trouble. I don't understand, Shiara burst out. How could Antorel do any magic without his staff? And how could Daystar do any magic at all? And what did Antorel have to do with the sword and everything? The king smiled at Mother, and then looked at Shiara and me. As long as things seem to be quiet out here, why don't we go inside? That way we can be comfortable while I explain. Shiara and I nodded. Father waved his hand, and the enchanted forest dissolved in the mist around us. It's only one more chapter. Only one more.